my opinions are not going to change the fact.
Hello everyone. So I, Tiana Arora, welcome you to our Atharva podcast. And I'm so delighted to have a very beautiful soul sitting beside me, Mr. Saurabh. And he is a faculty of Atharva College who is a literature enthusiast and has immense knowledge about the film and television department. So let's get started.
Thank you for your kind words, and I'm very happy to be here, so we can begin.
Yes, sir. So, sir, as I am from the film and television department as a student, I had this question in my mind that what makes the film very impactful? It is the content or is it the craft?
It is the content as well as the craft. The content is created by humans. Nowadays we have artificial intelligence creating content, and there is a great amount of debate going on whether the AI created content and human created content are at the same level. So I am a believer in humanity more than AI, and the content that humans create out of their experiences is one layer of having an impact. The second word that you said, a craft, which is a skill or an art, is equally important. Because you may have a good content, but if it is not executed or communicated artfully, then the impact will not be there. And a good film is always impactful because a person, the audience, carries the film with them throughout their life maybe.
True.
And when I say craft, it is a complex, layered word because a craft uses human creativity. A craft will use artificial intelligence also alongside human creativity. A craft will use human intelligence, human imagination, and it will involve technology, it will involve a cultural sensitivity. So there are many complex factors that go into that craft, and a good filmmaker through practice and through experience will be able to exploit their own potential.
So, sir, as you talked about AI, if we see the scripting skill or maybe something related to content, it is hampering and not letting the human mind think beyond the box. So, what is your opinion in it?
AI is already here. My opinions are not going to change the facts because I have to go with the flow. I cannot deny the existence of AI. It's already there and the industry is using it. We humans have to work alongside AI, and AI is a support. The program that goes into the artificial intelligence is a human made program, and yes, AI can create scripts, but I feel that the scripts created by humans are far more enriching and far more complex. AI can create script based on a certain pattern which is important, but within that pattern there are several nuances that only human experience can give. AI is welcome, AI is assisting very intelligently, very creatively, but at the end of the day it is the human mind that is superior to the artificial intelligence today. I don't know of the future.
That is true, sir. Sir, as you are a literature enthusiast, even I am a literature enthusiast. So, while we read Shakespeare, we see that his writing style has a unique quality of impacting on the reader's mind. And as he has introduced the characters of Romeo and Juliet, it was fictional, but people started believing it as real life characters. So, what according to you can we learn from his writing style?
You have touched a very passionate spot in my understanding of literature, because Shakespeare, I am passionate about Shakespeare, and usually literature enthusiasts are passionate about Shakespeare because he expressed humanity in all its diversity. He continues to be relevant across time and space. So even after hundreds of years. We enjoy our Shakespeare, we enjoy reading it, we enjoy performing it, and across cultures he's been translated. So it is interesting to know that Shakespeare's works are the second most translated corpus after the Bible, and it has been translated into several world languages because he expressed human emotions, the complexities of human emotions. And they say that is, if Shakespeare were living today, he would have been a great psychologist because he understood human psychology as any person perhaps in that position or that situation would have behaved more or less the same way as his characters behave. What was the next part of your question?
How can we learn from his writing styles?
I remember you also talked about Romeo and Juliet. His writing style is very simple, very fluid, very easy to remember and very easy to express.
Yes.
When we read Shakespeare today, because it's written in an older version of the English language, it is modern English, it is not the older version. In fact, modern English was set by the time Shakespeare started writing. What can we learn? We can learn about human emotions, we can learn about human relationships with each other, we can learn about power, politics, we can learn about ecology. Buzzword of today is ecological environmental conservation, and Shakespeare interestingly has talked a lot about ecology, he has talked a lot about gender issues, he has talked about issues related to human relationships. And Romeo and Juliet, since you talked about it, it is not, newer studies of Shakespeare reveal that perhaps Romeo and Juliet may not have been a figment of imagination, because interestingly Shakespeare never created his own plots. He borrowed plots from history, he borrowed plots from local folklore, he borrowed plot from other people's stories, old books. So like all his plots, the plot of Romeo and Juliet was borrowed, but the tension within the play is so intense because it is about falling in love with the enemy family. And it's a universal theme that you will see reflected in modern cinema also, that a girl and a boy, I should be gender neutral now. So there are two persons falling in love with each other whose families have some dushmani, what we can say, enmity with each other, and the society does not accept it, the families do not accept it, and the young love, immature love, sees no other option but to die, which is tragic. Shakespeare talked about the tragedy of human life because of situations, because of fate, because of human flaws. His more complex characters have very, very fragile egos sometimes, they are swayed by jealousy, they are indecisive, and his heroes, his characters are flawed characters, and that's what make them human, because they are imperfect, and their imperfections sometimes lead to tragic situations, relationship gaffes, and it is relatable, it is relevant, because in real life situations we see things like this happening all around us. Interestingly, studies in Romeo and Juliet have revealed that a folklore, there has been archaeological evidence in Turkey. A grave site was found wherein a young couple was shown hand in hand, indicating that they were buried together as one entity, and that local folklore where that grave was found has a story similar to that of Romeo and Juliet. So Shakespeare, it is said, he took it as chaff and he left it as gold. He borrowed the plots, but he enriched it so much. And remember, the copyright law was not there that time. So a lot of Shakespeare's work were not published even during his lifetime. The first printed version that we have of Shakespeare is after his death, because he was scared of people copying his work, just as people are scared of plagiarism today. People were scared of plagiarism that time because somebody's idea. Shakespeare himself borrowed ideas, but he recreated them. And do you know what was the age of Romeo and Juliet?
Maybe 17 and 13.
He was 15, she was 13 as per scholarship. So it is way too young, but it was normal that time. Teenage love was pretty normal, and people would get married when they were in their teens. So yes, love, young love, immature love is the theme of Romeo and Juliet, but Romeo and Juliet interestingly is regarded as one of his most immature plays, early plays. His more mature plays are far more complex. Plays like Hamlet, Othello,
King Lear.
King Lear, you're right, and Macbeth. These are even in contemporary times, in contemporary Indian cinema, they are adapted. So Macbeth got adapted as Makbul,
Yeah.
Othello got adapted as Omkara,
Yes.
Hamlet got adapted as Haidar.
Yes.
So he continues, Shakespeare continues, the themes continued, the characterizations that he created, the characters continue to live somewhere today, and that is the beauty of literature, that artists can create characters that can outlive the writer.
So, sir, from your sayings of sagacity, I came to the point that Shakespeare understood psychology at its zenith and he was a romantic writer. But literature is not only limited to English language, it is way more vast. And if we talk about Hindi, so what according to you are your most favorite writers in Hindi?
Sadly, I don't get to read Hindi literature as much as I would like to. The same goes for Marathi literature, and my reading is scattered. I stopped having favorite writers, but one cannot forget the doyen of Hindi literature, Shri Harivansh Rai Ji Bachchan. One of his poems, Agnipat,
Yes.
comes to my mind, which is again a universal theme. His lines such as "Ye mahan drishya hai, chal raha manushya hai." It gives you encouragement, it gives you hope, it inspires you, and literature across cultures, languages and countries have the ability to touch upon the raw emotions of the reader. Shakespeare being a romantic writer, it would be unfair to call him only a romantic writer, because he touched all the range of human emotions that can have the laughter, sadness, tragedy, jealousy, envy, anger, the emotions that humans are capable of. You are capable of so many emotions. Even in Hindi, we have writers from, in fact, the first novel in Indian languages was Kadambari. The format, we have Hindi literature in the form of poetry, literature in the form of religious poetry, the Hanuman Chalisa being one of my favorites because it is a very powerful mantra.
Yes.
And literature also has the capacity to spiritually enlighten you.
True.
Poetry is supposed to have a spiritual power in it, and poets are supposed to have a vision that usually writers in general have a vision that other people don't have, that sixth sense of looking at the world and looking at relationship and society around them, and they communicate to you beautifully. And when the reader reads it, whether it is in Hindi literature, Russian literature, any literature, the reader is emotionally impacted, intellectually impacted, and that is the power of literature perhaps, and of course the duty of literature to move you intellectually, aesthetically and emotionally.
Yes, sir.
So, coming back to your original question, it will be the poem Agnipat, and yes, the Hanuman Chalisa has been very inspiring in its own way in my life.
So, sir, as you spoke about Hanuman Chalisa, I find the writers like Rishi Bhas or Bharat Muni and many other writers like Kalidas, they have portrayed literature as well as spirituality and interconnected them. So, do you think spirituality can be a part of literature, or literature can be a part of spirituality?
The earliest literature has been spiritual. You look at Indian literature, the earliest literature in Indian tradition has been the Vedas, Rigved,
Yes.
which is a spiritual text.
Yes.
There are prayers, there are mantras, there are invocations to various deities, and literature across cultures. A lot of literature is spiritual, religious. Literature and spirituality have always had a strong connection. Even in English literature, there was a corpus of literature called metaphysical literature. People like John Donne, George Herbert, they were poets who wrote about the relationship between humanity and divinity, humans and gods, and they have explored these relations in so beautiful ways that it encourages you intellectually to be more spiritual, because spirituality is a human emotional quality. But spirituality also compels you to look at it intellectually, scientifically, and from a research point of view, and you come across so many interesting facets of literature which are spiritual as well as non-spiritual. But spiritual need not mean always religious. It could be individually spiritual. it could be collectively spiritual. It may not be religious, but it still may be spiritual. So I think I'll agree with you, Tiana, here that you cannot really separate literature from spirituality. Some aspect of spirituality may remain in literature, and it has been a universal feature across languages that I have observed.
So, sir, as I see that you have immense knowledge about literature, what fascinated you to read literature or learn it?
Literature fascinated me like literature has fascinated you. It was a natural fascination, I would believe, and my father would get me books, my mother would allow me to buy books, the second-hand bookshops that are there. So at an early age, and we never had a digital world out there. So your next best option was newspapers and books, and of course the television. But books would always take you on an imaginative journey across time and space, and that was fascinating. And I was not fascinated with science, so I ended up taking arts against the wishes of my father particularly. In our first year, we were asked this question, what do you understand by literature? And we had various perspectives. The students gave their perspectives of literature. But yes, when you take up arts, you are exposed to different ideas, and that fascinates you because all your ideas may not agree with you.
Yes, sir.
All other people's opinions or ideas may not agree with your ideas, and that is where you learn that there are so many different viewpoints, there are different perspectives, there are people who need not think as you think. I am conditioned to think in a particular way, but you are conditioned to respond or think in a different way, and different people from different cultures think differently, and yet in all their differences there is a universality, the universality of humanity. And literature helps you to connect with times and places that you have not been physically. So you let your imagination wander into a world that is not in your physical reality, and that world sometimes can be fascinating, that world can be disturbing. If you read Edgar Allan Poe, he used to write horror novels and they are horrifying, and that was fascinating. So when I took up arts, we had an option for literature. I took up literature with 6 papers, and then masters with 8 papers spread across 2 years. And that's how I got into teaching of communication, teaching journalism, teaching advertising, because literature manifests in several ways. So what made you take up the hostship here?
I was always fascinated about doing voiceover or maybe in anchoring. So, yeah.
I'll remember that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And how, according to you, is literature connected with the films portrayed nowadays? As when we see that the plays of Shakespeare are being turned into movies or being derived in different ways. So, how does literature impact the media industry or the film industry?
Literature has always been the base of the media and the film industry. Before the films, technology was developed, we had performances that would go on stage. Whether it's a film or if it's or a stage performance, it will need a script.
Yes.
Scripts come under literature. You have songs, lyrics, that comes under literature. Dialogues come under literature. So literature is the base for films. Films are a visual expression of what has been written down.
Yes.
And both films and literature have their own set of aesthetics and their own set of rules. But filmmaking came later because of the technology. Literature has been there earlier, and even before the printed word was there, literature was written down. Before literature was written down, there was oral literature. People would sing songs, people would tell folklores, folk
Ballads.
stories, ballads, you're right. So literature has always existed as long as humanity has existed. And one more aspect that connects literature with films is both tell stories. A film will tell a story of some kind, and a book will tell a story of some kind. A film may be non-fictional, a book may be non-fictional. So you have various points of similarity and overlapping between literature and films.
Yes, sir. As we talk about films, we understand that for being a filmmaker, or whether you are a common person, maybe taking up another profession, but in real life situations we come across the skill of reading, but reading is getting extinct. So can you give a message to the audience? How should they increase the habit of reading?
I will here, Tiana, partly disagree with you that reading is getting extinct, because we see people's platforms of reading have changed. People may not read books physically. Kindles. Even when you read social media messages, you are reading. One is reading, and people listen to or watch podcasts like this. This is learning in its own way. In fact, the world is more beautiful now, because apart from reading, you have knowledge and information in various formats. You have an audio format. While driving, you can listen. While just sitting, you can listen to podcasts, and that helps you in your vocabulary, that helps you in your understanding. So maybe people have substituted reading for listening because of their lifestyle, or their platforms of reading may have undergone a change, but the basic desire of humanity to acquire more knowledge has not changed, and literature is there because there are readers, there is an audience. Films will be there as long as there will be somebody to listen to your story. There will be the need of a storyteller, whether it's literature or whether it's film.
True, sir. So thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for inviting and having me here.
Yes, sir. So, everyone, I hope this podcast was as inquisitive for you as it was for me. And we wrap up here. Stay tuned for the next podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.